All right, everyone, good morning. We are broadcasting live on YouTube for you, and we're going to work to get this on Facebook Live for you a little bit later as well, so you can watch it back. But of course, we do have a threat for severe weather, not only one, but a couple of rounds of severe weather are going to be possible here across North Georgia. The risk continues to elevate is what I should say, and our slight risk, which is level 2 out of 5, keeps getting pushed east, so now it encompasses all of the metro area. And to show you what I'm talking about, we will show you some graphics here. So here is a look at our severe threats. So that level 2 out of 5 now encompassing pretty much all of metro Atlanta. That level 3 out of 5 threat indicated by the orange color there, that is indicating an enhanced risk. Now within that threat there is where the greatest threat for tornadic activity lies. In fact, the potential for even some longer track tornadoes, that lies out in Alabama. Now that doesn't mean we're not going to watch that very carefully in case any of those tornadoes survive over the Alabama-Georgia line. That's not necessarily looking likely, but our atmosphere definitely conducive for brief spin-up tornadoes. Also the potential for some damaging wind gusts upwards of 60 miles per hour in any severe storms. We're looking at 40 to 50 in any stronger storms that do develop really starting this afternoon, and that threat will continue into tomorrow morning. And in fact, tomorrow morning's threat does look to be a little bit greater than our threat this afternoon and evening, although this front now, so essentially what happened to get that threat to kind of get greater for our area is that this front moved faster, and all the storms out ahead of it are moving faster. So it's coming through during the heat of the day, and all of the heat that we have in place, all of the moisture we have in place is ultimately going to help thunderstorms thrive today and ultimately act like a spring-like system rather than a winter-like system. Here's tomorrow's severe outlook. Notice it kind of shifts south of the area. Severe outlooks for day 1, you're looking at day 2. Day 1 kind of goes into tomorrow morning, so this is showing you that that threat will end tomorrow morning and then move south towards central Georgia, not here in North Georgia. Let's take a look at what's going on right now. This system is massive. It is really bringing all kinds of weather everywhere. You have flash flooding indicated by those green boxes up in Kentucky. You have snow up towards Omaha and in parts of the Rockies and the Dakotas. And then all those yellow boxes there, that is a whole line of severe thunderstorm warned storms. So I don't see any tornado warnings right now, but a lot of severe thunderstorm warnings because of very gusty wind. Just looking at this from this far away, I'm seeing some of that bowing motion when you'll see that line kind of go like this. That is the wind just rushing out along that line, and so damaging wind gusts definitely going to be possible as this makes its way through. So what's going on right now? And in fact, a new tornado warning just popped up in southern Mississippi there. So what's happening here is we have this warm front to our north, and underneath that warm front, warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico is getting pulled in. So that's why you might notice it feels pretty muggy outside. It also feels warm outside. Temperatures today going to head into the 70s. And then that cold front's going to come through and lift all that warm, moist air up and ultimately produce thunderstorms, some of which could be severe. In the meantime, notice that tornado warning. It's that red polygon that's down in Mississippi, that little red box you see there just to the left of that first orange set of arrows. So those are storms out ahead of the cold front, and those ones are tricky. So I call them small but mighty because when you have these storms fire up out ahead of the cold front, what happens is they take advantage of the spin in the atmosphere, and when they come through during the heat of the day, that's when you get those tornadic storms because they don't have the lift from the cold front, but they have the lift from all that warm and moist air. It's very buoyant out there. And then when there's spin in the atmosphere, those little tiny cells take advantage of those really well. We call them supercells. And that is what we're going to be watching for really as we head into the evening tonight. So just giving you a look at how warm it is out there. We're already generally in the mid to upper 60s, so that warm air is in place. Again, we're under that warm front. So we're getting that warm spring-like air to move in, but we're also fairly muggy. Now, this is kind of considered comfortable in the summertime, but this time of year when your temperatures aren't as warm, that can't hold as much moisture. So when you have dew points that are very close to the temperature, that's a saturated air mass. And ultimately that means that our air mass is pretty moist, and you put warm, moist air together, that's going to give you fuel for thunderstorms. So while this would be considered more comfortable in the summertime when our dew points are generally in the upper 60s and low 70s, this is muggy for this time of year, and that's plenty of moisture to allow for storms to develop. including severe storms. So as we go through the afternoon, around 1 o'clock, expect storms to become slightly more widespread, but we're really looking at that commute time home from school and work. So by 3 o'clock, we could maybe have an isolated strong storm at this point. We're definitely going to be warm enough, so we have the energy. And at this point in the evening, as we head towards 8 o'clock at night, this is all activity out ahead of our cold front. We'll have a couple of waves of energy out ahead of our cold front. At this point, we'll be watching for isolated damaging wind gusts upwards of 60 miles per hour. Of course, maybe the potential for some flash flooding as very heavy rain will be included in this. It will be windy regardless, but any severe storms need 60 mile per hour wind gusts to become severe. So we're looking more of a 40, 50 mile per hour gust range as these roll through with isolated gusts as high as 60. We will be watching for some of those more cellular structures within these waves to potentially take advantage of the spin in the atmosphere. Maybe a brief spin up tonight. But again, I do think when we add that extra ingredient of the lift from the cold front is when we're really gonna have every ingredient needed and come together at the perfect time to have that potential for a brief spin up. Again, that's not gonna be a widespread issue. We are not looking at any kind of outbreak situation here, but we will be watching for that isolated threat for a brief spin up tornado. So here's 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Keep in mind, there is a threat for severe weather during the overnight hours, and I'm gonna put myself on camera for this so it seems as urgent as it needs to be. So through the overnight hours, we do have the chance for some storms, and that's also when we're going to be watching for those little cellular clusters ahead of our cold front. Now, while we do think that in the morning, closer to sunrise, when we have even more heat, is when we're going to see our best chance for severe weather, I do think that we have at least an isolated chance overnight, so it's really, really important. It's overly important that while you're sleeping, you have a way to receive weather warnings while you're asleep. Our Atlanta News First app is amazing for that. It has a really loud notification. Keep your phone volume on loud. Make sure your phones are charged overnight, just in case we do manage to have any severe weather overnight. That is so, so important to have a way to receive weather warnings in the overnight hours when we do have even just an isolated threat through the overnight. Okay, now that I am done with that, let's go into tomorrow morning. So we have, again, this cold front. All the activity today is not our cold front. That's activity ahead of our cold front. And then our cold front comes through tomorrow morning. And what that's ultimately going to do is add lift. So that's going to be a little extra support. So at this point, you have warm, moist air. We're still going to be in the 60s tomorrow morning. You have the wind shear, which is that change in wind speed and direction with height. That gives you spin. And then you also have the lift and the forcing from the cold front. So you put those three ingredients together, that gives you a more organized chance for severe weather. And so that's why I think that tomorrow morning is going to be our best chance for it. That doesn't mean we have no chance as we head into the afternoon and evening today, because we have plenty of ingredients for that in the afternoon and evening. But I do think tomorrow morning we'll be watching very carefully. Keep in mind, this is going to be the time a lot of you will be headed to work. If maybe you can try and go to work a little bit later, that would be better, because you don't want to be driving in all of this. So if you can kind of work out with your employer, hey, you know, I usually come into work at 7 a.m., 8 a.m. Can we come in a little later so I don't have to go out in all this mess? Probably a good conversation to have. Here's 9 o'clock. Notice here, you see those little purple dots there. So that's kind of indication of thunderstorms, but also maybe some of those supercells trying to form and maybe rotate. So again, we're watching that very carefully. Isolated damaging wind gusts possible within this as well. As we head towards 10 o'clock in the morning, we're done. The threat shifts to our south. Skies will clear, and we'll look ahead to a windy day, well, breezy day, I should say, and then we'll look ahead to a cooler and nicer second half of the week. So here's the tornado threat. What this is showing you is the energy and the spin in the atmosphere. It's a product that takes those two parameters and turns it into this kind of legend here. So when you start to see the orange colors, that's a slightly more heightened risk for tornadic activity. So again, like I said, today, while it can't be completely ruled out, tomorrow morning, notice how that orange color kind of blows up across 75. Also why I'm thinking they expanded that level 2 risk beyond all of the metro, not just up to 75, because it looks like we're just going to have the ingredients all together even into tomorrow morning, and that threat comes to an end by late morning. Here's a look at kind of just a general overview of what we're thinking. Tornado risk closer to moderate. Lightning also closer to moderate. High winds are going to be pretty isolated, but it is still going to be breezy. So, and we could have strong storms with 40 to 50 mile per hour winds in them, but severe limit looking pretty isolated, and then heavy rain is going to be a pretty high threat. I do think that that flash flood risk is going to be something we're going to be watching very carefully. a lot of rain in a short period of time, that's kind of what that leads to. So we'll be watching that very, very carefully. And we just can't stress enough, you kind of want to stay off the roads if you can. I know you can't help it if you're already at work right now, but you just need to drive really, really carefully. Don't be in a hurry for your evening commute and your morning commute tomorrow. Here's a look at the rainfall totals. We're thinking anywhere between 1.5 inches to 3 inches of rain, locally heavy amounts possible. And again, in a short period of time, we're talking maybe over the span of 18 hours or so, that can lead to some flash flooding. So that's why we have that first alert for today and tomorrow. The threat starts this afternoon, we'll say around 2, 3 o'clock, and then ends tomorrow around 10 a.m. So you just want to be super, super weather aware. Again, have our First Alert weather app. You can scan that little QR code on the top of the 7-day there. It'll take you right to the app. Turn on your notifications so that you can get alerted of any kind of severe weather warnings. You can track radar. You can do future radar. There's so many great features on that app, and we have been updating that throughout the morning constantly for you. Storm Prediction Center will give us another update on our severe risk around 5 o'clock today. And so we'll be sure to update you with that as soon as we get it. Behind the front, breezy, nice day Thursday, so we just have to get through today and tomorrow morning. And then we'll be back towards average. So after a couple of spring-like days, we're going to be back in the 50s and 60s with mornings in the 30s and 40s. So again, just while this is going to be kind of a long stretch of potential for severe weather, normally when our cold fronts come through, it's just a couple of hours and we're done. This is not going to be the case. We'll have, of course, the storms ahead of the front and then the physical front tomorrow morning. So just got to hang in there, and then we'll look ahead to a much nicer weekend. We do have a rain chance on Sunday, by the way, about a 20% chance for rain on Sunday. So be sure that you are staying tuned again to us on air online. We'll be streaming on our social platforms as well, just in case you can't be near your TV. And we will be updating you throughout the day. We'll have a team of meteorologists here throughout the entire overnight hours. There will always be someone here throughout the evening and into tomorrow morning. So we got you covered here on Atlanta News First throughout the entire overnight, so we can keep you and your family safe as we brace for the potential for severe weather, something we haven't had to talk about in quite some time. So if you have any questions, feel free to message me on my Facebook, always available there. And you can always leave a comment on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page, any of the posts we make. We'll be sure to get back to you and answer those questions. So stay weather aware today, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.